You have to click the stop record button.
Yeah.
Oh gosh darn it. Caitlin.
What?
Why is it still recording? I was making noises.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Good morrow, adventurers, and welcome to our podcast. Our show discusses all things Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy genres. We are your co-hosts, Mandi and Katie. I am beyond excited tonight to introduce to you our very own...
Beyond excited.
Our very own full-time dungeon master, Kris Bennett. He has an extra special place in my heart because he's my husband. So welcome, Kris, and thank you for joining us today on our Good Morrow Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We are diving into the world of world building as the DM. Now, Kris has created homebrews from day one, really. We've played for 3 years now. You've always had quite a bit of a homebrew.
3.5 years. Yeah.
I think probably in all of the campaigns that you've done.
I've never once run a module, ever.
Yeah.
I remember when your husband, Jason, asked me, like, what was it? It was like 4 months into the first campaign. And he's like, where do you get all the content for the modules? I can't find any of this content in any of the modules. And I was like, I don't. I make it up.
It's all up here.
It's all up
from
here.
the brain. Yep.
Oh,
Decades of reading fantasy material and playing fantasy video games and RPGs will warp your mind forever.
Well,
So I'm curious though, because I feel like this campaign that we're playing right now is a little bit different in that you've completely homebrewed the entire world. And before we were playing in Faerun, but it was like Kris Bennett's Faerun, right? Where there were, little things that were different, the Elven Kingdom that you basically created for Katie and I, thanks by the way, and all of those other things. How has that process been different? And like, what are the similarities?
It's definitely a lot different. With the first couple of campaigns, it was like, we're based in Faerun, so you might run into characters that I didn't have to create, who had entire backstories and history, or cities that I didn't have to create, and I could find resources for easily, like the names of districts down to like the culture of the people and the history of a place, which you don't realize is really important until you have to build all of it. So This campaign, I've built everything. The languages, the world, cities, NPCs, cultures, topography, the map, the deities, the magic system, everything. And it's daunting sometimes, for sure. So anyone who's thinking about doing it, first off, do it. It is such an amazing creative outlet. But secondly, it's a lot, and you can go a little too deep. I've gone a little too deep in some areas where I was like, but let's learn about why grass grows on specific sides of mountains.
Yeah, what type of soil?
We're going to break down the soil, and then that's how I'm going to make this map accurate. Like, relax. It's a fantasy world. I think anyone who's getting started with it, what I really had to start with was tone and theme. And once I got started with those two things, I determined like what kind of universe this really was. Then other questions were easier to answer. Like, I've got a general theme and a tone. So does that fit a grim, dark fantasy, or does that fit a, high fantasy or epic fantasy or kind of a realistic fantasy? And then once I did that, well, then it's like, okay, I can start working into what the magic system is. What are items? What's happened? And start playing around. But like starting with the theme and the tone, if you're going to this extent that I've done and jumping down this rabbit hole. So I started again with that central theme, and then I kind of built out as I went, like, what races do I want to include? What do I don't? Because of the OGL, I took out races. I was worried about my ideas or my universe having any kind of claim against it. So I took out some races, said, you know what? I can't include that. Or what would be my own take on that? Because I also want players to resonate with certain races too. So,
because it's so all encompassing, and at times maybe daunting and overwhelming, what made you want to jump down this rabbit hole and create a world?
My job doesn't provide me a lot of opportunity for a creative outlet, to answer your question. So for me, it's I get to build things. And then the other thing is it's a challenge and it's fun. My players, you all, have consistently told me that it's an interesting world. Like they want to learn more. They want to delve in.
It's a two-part question. How much time do you normally spend a week, roughly, prepping for D&D? So, like, we'll just say last year. And then how much? Like
how much time did I spend when we were in a established universe like Farron versus how much time I'm spending now in my own universe in Cadria?
Someone who's considering this.
Well, for every DM, it's going to be different. For every person, it's going to be different, right? I am very concerned about like creating a world that is always following its own rules and then being consistent in my lore, which isn't like every DM's concerned about that. But some people, it's okay. Like they don't worry about that. For me, I'm a little paranoid about it. With Farron, if I take out the time I was building like minis and making terrain, because that was a ton of time.
That was a ton.
Maybe 2 to 5 hours prepping, depending on the week, depending on if it was a completely homebrew session or if you were going to like a city of Waterdeep or something, you know, where I could rely on other narratives and things that have been created in the past by other people. So with Good Morrow, y'all don't see me on the podcast very often. And I don't have my own content stream yet because we eventually will want to record our campaign in my universe. So I spend like 20 to 30 hours a week just prepping, creating. If that's prepping for the session itself, I probably spend like 5 hours prepping for the session itself, but that's on top of the rest of the hours prepping the lore, creating, you know, unique magical items and creatures and areas and characters and all that other stuff.
With all of the time that you spend doing all of the world brewing, how do you manage your time? So you have 5 kids. You have a needy wife. I'm not.
At least she owns it.
I just
yes, you are.
Wow!
Yes,
wow! Wow!
You are.
Happy for the screen.
I say this.
You can all tell.
I
know you as an audience. You can all tell.
How? Okay, I don't.
It's fine,
guys. No,
it's fine.
Okay. Anyway,
she's wearing the makeup to hide it. Anyway, continue.
The wife. You have a full-time career. Not to mention like
a thriving career, by the way. Like Kris is awesome.
You are.
Anyway.
Awesome. And then just like downtime outside of Good Morrow, or I mean, if there is any outside of D&D.
Yeah.
So how are you doing that? Are you doing it?
I am. So you can't world build 24/7. Some people can. Kudos to you. I honestly, though, feel like you really can't world build 24/7 because you need to also fill the bucket. So think of your creativity as a bucket, right? At least that's how I think of it.
Yeah.
And your knowledge, your total, skill set is a bucket. Unless you're filling the bucket with information and with knowledge and with ideas and other, content, then you're going to have nothing to draw on for your own creativity. And, there's jokes in D&D when you look at forums and you're in Reddit and you're looking around how people are like, oh, DMs just regurgitate stories that we've all read. So did Shakespeare, so did everybody. Like we've all regurgitated stories for hundreds and thousands of years. So really it comes down to, can you tell it in a more compelling way? Can you tell it with a new angle? What is the unique aspect to this particular story or world or area that's unique to you and special, right? Plot twists surprise everyone because everyone hasn't read all the content in the world, right? I'm not saying plagiarize, try not to, but also don't feel bad if you're like, I want to make this one story was really cool in this book I read one time and I would love to create something similar, with the right gravitas. But so anyway, my point is, I'm digressing. My point is that you've got to have downtime in addition to your world building. So if I'm like cranking through world building and I'm just like hitting a wall and I'm just stuck, time to take a break. Let's go play, New World is my current MMO that I like to play, or go play some Diablo, or jump on another game I'm on to right now is BattleBit. Oh my gosh, it is too fun. But like do that, or go watch some anime, go watch some fantasy movies, go break out some fantasy books and start, filling it that way. But you got to recharge.
So I've never homebrewed my own universe because I've watched you do it and it's not for me. Because you look tired.
I go a little overboard. I think anyone can homebrew. It also depends on how often you guys play. Like if you guys play once a month, you got tons of time to prepare.
That's a fair point.
We play every week, and that's a lot. So
it is. No, I was just thinking back to last summer because I homebrewed the story I homebrewed, and there was a couple factions that I homebrewed, but the world was in Faerun, right? We were playing in an established world, and it wasn't necessarily General Faerun. It was Kris Bennett's Faerun because I wanted the opportunity to bring in some other stuff if I wanted to. And I started with like, okay, some of it was homebrewed along the way because y'all did some stuff that I wasn't expecting. Sure. So I was like, well, okay, so they're going this place. So what would be here, and why is it here?
I think that's a fantastic way to tackle homebrew. I think that's
like, why would they be here? Yeah.
Take a module and then make it yours. Play with it. Don't that's start off with what I'm doing and make an entire universe and punish yourself for having a hobby. Just have fun, be creative. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's kind of what I think Call of the Netherdeep is going to turn into. Because everybody's really strong character, and it's fun to try to see how I'm moving things along. And if y'all don't want to do this story, it's called the Netherdeep. That's awesome because I have a couple of other ideas. But it's fun to try to fit everybody into a module. And it's almost harder, I think, with really experienced players, especially in an established group where everybody kind of knows how to play with each other.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I think adventures and modules are a blast. And the content and the stories. And it's so fun to see what writers have come up with, especially when they're professional writers and they have teams and a lot of resources behind them to see these cool things they make. And those are a great place to start. Start small, make a homebrew sub race, make a homebrew item, make a homebrew spell. And if you mess it up, that's okay. You learn. Like I made a player character, a spell this campaign around, and I feel like I'm decent at balancing. I don't understand the deep mathematics of the game, but I understand enough to where I can balance pretty well until I made this particular spell and they got into a very specific situation in which the spell was always hyper effective.
It's awesome.
And it frankly worked out because also that event was too hard. I overbalanced. I went too far on one side and it worked out. But what did I do after that? And what has now been balanced? That spell, right? True. So I created a homebrew subclass for the first time in this campaign. And one of the players is playtesting it. And we've gone through, now we're on iteration 3. And iteration 3 is phenomenal. And he's so excited. He hasn't even had a chance since we've updated it to play since then. And
sorry, John.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be so cool. Right. So don't be afraid. Start somewhere. Start small.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
Are you having fun?
Am I having fun? Yes. I enjoy it a lot. And I'm not a perfect DM by any means. My biggest thing is like, just do it. If you want to DM, just do it. What's the worst that can happen? And if you have players that you DM for and they're rude to you, like that's their problem. Go play with different people. Get a good group.
Just kick them out of your table.
Yep.
You're all out. No, it's true.
DMs are hard to find. And I see a lot of other groups struggle with that. And it breaks my heart because the DM is also a player and they're also having fun.
Yeah.
So everyone should have fun.
You just get to run a bunch of characters at one time. Yep. And fun fact, almost every NPC that I've created has a little bit of backstory just in my head because that's how I exist as a person, as I have to understand them a little bit to play them.
Well, if you do have any other questions for our DM, this one or Mandi or anyone, feel free to comment down below and ask us your questions and we will definitely respond back to you. Thank you for joining us and we hope to see you next week.
Well, thank you for having me on. I hope I answered some questions and at least piqued some of y'all's curiosity enough to give some homebrewing and world building your own shot.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.
what to say after that.
Don't
in all
just move
honesty.
forward.
No,
Really, that's all you can do.